Welcome to the Sisters in Service podcast. My name is Kat Corchado, also known as the voice connecting women veterans nationwide. This podcast is for anyone connected with the military, from veterans, male and female, military spouses, military brats, even parents who may have children who are in the military. As an Air Force veteran, I understand the trials and triumphs that women veterans go through in service and out of service. And so I wanted to find a way that I could put it out there into the airwaves and let everyone know what we're going through and find a way and a solution to what's happening to us in the service. I also like to highlight these women who are business owners, they're entrepreneurs, they're bosses in their business. And so I hope that you will follow me, you will share, and you will subscribe to this podcast, which comes out every week on Tuesdays. And as always, please stay safe, take care of each other until next time. And it's never too late to start your impossible. Welcome, Sisters in Service, to another episode of our podcast. My name is Kat Corchado. You know me. And today, my guest is Sarah Doran. Now, you need to pay attention to this young woman because she's doing something that's a little bit different and very, very cool. She was an Army brat. She was an Army veteran. She's a military spouse. She's a mom, but she's also an author. And here's the cool part. She writes children's books that are from the military child's perspective. How cool is that? So help me welcome Sarah Doran.
Thank you.
How are you today?
I'm doing really well. Thank you.
Good. So I find it interesting sometimes that military brats will either do one of two things. One, they want nothing to do with the military, or number two, they absolutely go right into the military. So did you always know that's what you were going to do? You know, being a military child, did you think, I can't wait to go into the military? Or was it just one of those, oh, I don't know what I want to do. Let me just go in.
Absolutely. So I did not plan on going into the military. I loved every aspect of being a military kid. And so going on post always felt like being home. And it didn't matter which base I was at. That's just where I felt comfortable. And so I got to that birthday where I wasn't going to be able to be a dependent anymore. And they said, we're going to take away that ID card. And I started going into panic mode because I'm like,
it's like your binky, right? It's like a binky, you know, like, no, don't take it away from me.
And so I was so sad. And I'm like, I have to do something. I have to get in the military. And so I did. I talked to a recruiter and I got in as fast as I could.
Now, did you know you wanted to go Army, or did it matter to you?
You know, my dad tried to convince me to go in the Air Force, but it was going to be a little bit longer than I wanted to wait. And so the Army welcomed me very quickly and said, we can get you on a bus tomorrow if you want. So the Army just made sense for my situation.
I think it's interesting when you said it feels like home to you, because my mom lives right outside Scott Air Force Base in Illinois. And I had gone to see her and stay for a little bit. And I got to go on Scott, and I just, you look around and you see the men and women in uniform, and you're just like, oh my God, this is, you just feel so like these are my people, and I remember calling my husband. I said, is it weird that after over 22 years of being out of the service, this still feels like home to me? And he goes, no. He goes, you grew up as a military brat, and then you were a military spouse, and then you're a military veteran. He goes, you've grown up here. And I go, yeah. And it doesn't even have to be an Air Force base. It could be a Marine base where I don't know anything. I don't know where anything is.
Yes.
I'm like, yeah, these are my people. And they're like, get out of here. You're Air Force.
Yes, no, it's a whole culture of its own. It's our own family of people. And, there's just a camaraderie and a community that you can't really find outside of that when you grow up in it.
Now, you go in the Army and you became a Blackhawk mechanic?
Yes.
Girl, is that what you wanted? Is that you said, yeah, that looks cool, I want to do that?
I knew my personality is one of those personalities where I just need to be challenged in whatever I'm doing, or else I get restless. And so I had narrowed it down between, I think, PR or Blackhawk mechanic. And I mean, I knew nothing I didn't know the difference between a wrench and a screwdriver. I mean, I knew nothing,
Right.
but I made the minimum score. And I said, Dad, because my dad was still in the service. And I said, Dad, who are the people who shoot the big gun out of the helicopters? And he's like, oh yeah, that's a 15 Tango Blackhawk mechanic. And you have to start as mechanic. And anyway, I said, that's what I want to do. So it took some convincing. My recruiter wasn't thinking that was the right job for me, but I managed to convince him, and I couldn't have been happier. It was such a cool job.
Now, you met your husband in the military, in the Army also, and he was also a Blackhawk mechanic?
Yes, I showed up, I guess, a few months after he showed up at Fort Hood, and there's not a lot of females in that profession. And so when a new girl shows up, everybody kind of notices. And
oh, you think?
Yeah. And so he decided it was his turn to go check out the new girl, and came up, and
that's the end of one story and the beginning of another story.
Yeah.
Being the only female, or one of very few females in your career field or in that unit, how did that make you feel? Did it bother you, or did you say, I'm just going to do my job and keep it moving?
It was challenging in a lot of different ways, for sure. I was definitely met with some resistance, especially considering I did not know the world of mechanics before I went to school. And I was met with some hostility, for sure, by some of the men who were in the unit. But in time, as we all kind of got to know each other, and I was able to show them that I was there to do a job and do it to the best of my ability, we all became like family very quickly. So it was a very good experience, but it's just that initial, almost having to prove yourself, before you can
you're
get
trying
on
to
with
break
business.
into that bro code. It's all men all the time. And then this woman comes in, they're like, dang it, now we got to watch our language. We got to you know what I mean?
Yes.
And I think one of the things I noticed in the Air Force is that when women were in either an all-male unit or mostly male unit, they did have one of two things. They either became one of the guys, like literally, they became one of the guys, or they became ultra feminine. They went like totally the opposite direction. And so you kind of seemed like you just kind of, you kind of looked around and said, let me just be me, and they either like it or they don't.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially growing up, my dad was a chaplain. So I was the preacher's daughter, and having that, stereotype following me wherever I went as well. People were constantly like, oh, we need to watch our language, and we need to, make sure we don't show her the dirty pictures, and, all of those things. But I feel like I was able to really stay true to who I was as a woman and a Christian, and just, do my job the best that I possibly could, and keep treating people with respect.
Absolutely. Let's go back to the military brat part of it. So a lot of times people who aren't affiliated with the military think that always moving around and going to different schools is the most horrible thing in the world. As a military brat, I think that I had an education unlike anyone else's. Because of being in the military, I got to see places and do things and see things that a lot of kids who aren't affiliated with the military only got to read about or see on TV. What is your feel about? How did you feel being a military brat? Were you very resistant to it, or you're like, hey, this is kind of cool, let's keep doing this?
Yeah, no. So I've always had that kind of restless personality. And so being a military kid was probably the best thing that probably ever happened to me. I loved the adventure of moving. I loved making new friends and seeing new people and places and getting to travel with my family. So I ate it up. I mean, I just absolutely loved every aspect of being a military kid. Did that mean it wasn't hard? No, absolutely not.
It had its moments. It can be challenging.
Challenges, yeah, for sure. But I feel like there's a resilience that military children have because they go through these things.
Yes.
That other children aren't accustomed to. And so that was I'm thankful for those kinds of experiences because I felt like they helped make me a stronger person.
Right. What do you say to, you always hear about, kids who they get into trouble and they said, oh, they've gone to different schools and they kept moving. How do you feel about that? Do you think that's a cop-out, or do you feel like it's just different for them than it was for us? Do you think we were more in an insulated type of community where it was safer for us to be military dependents because we were on a base, that's, I won't say secluded, but, back in the 70s or even now, try to get on any base, you're going to get stopped. Mm-hmm. Do you think it's a cop-out when you hear about that on the news?
As far as civilians or?
Yeah, about, when you hear about some kid that, was arrested for whatever, and they said, oh, he went to all these different schools and he was moving 3 or 4 times, and how do you feel about that when you hear that?
I don't necessarily think that's a cop-out. Moving and changing support systems is incredibly hard.
Yes.
And I don't want to discount that for military kids or any kid for that matter, because that is incredibly challenging.
Yes.
I think that military kids sometimes have that better support system because they are on base. But they're not always on base either. There's a lot of military kids who are in schools outside of the base. So they're military affiliated, but they're not on base. And so I know I experienced that in high school, going to a school that wasn't on base. And it was a lot harder of a transition for me at that point because a lot of these kids had grown up together. They weren't used to having to include somebody new. And so I definitely don't think it's a cop-out for people to struggle through that or it to be a challenge.
Oh, I didn't mean to say that it's not hard. It's very hard. But I think the one thing, the difference is, if I move from one place to another, that I'm going to another base where there are other military kids. So we all have something in common. Oh, my dad works with your dad. We're all shopping at the commissary or the BX or whatever. Yes. Whereas on the civilian side, you're going to a school where you have nothing or not that you know of, nothing in common, that you have to almost start over for real. I think,
right. Yeah. And kind of piggybacking on what we were talking about as far as the base feeling like home, it didn't matter which base we were at. If it was a new base or one we had been to a dozen times, it had that family and familiarity to it because of this, similar aspects on each base. And like you said, the kids who have grown up in the military, they're used to making new friends and being welcoming and, oh, hey.
And there were no haves and have-nots. We all lived in base housing. It was all the same unless you're an officer. But then all the officers stayed, it just, there was, everything was pretty much, I won't say status quo, but, there wasn't, my dad's a higher rank than yours. I'm living here. If you were enlisted, you stayed enlisted in quarters. It was just as simple as that.
Yes.
So how did it feel coming out of the military? Did you have any kind of transition issues? Because you get out and you think, oh, can't wait to be a civilian, get to do what I want. And then all of a sudden you feel this, it's not depression. It's almost like you mourn that military kind of connection. Did you have anything like that?
Oh, I definitely did. We got out in 2013. I was pregnant with my first, and we really had no idea what we were doing. My husband was going to school and working odd jobs to take care of me and the baby, and then we moved around several more times, just trying to kind of find where we were supposed to be. But there was definitely that longing for that community that is very hard to find outside of the military.
I truly believe that, especially like if you get out and you're around military, you know what I mean? Like there are a lot of places where people get out, but they stay in the area and there's military and veterans all around. And that's awesome. But I went from being completely surrounded by military and veterans to not knowing anybody who was military or a veteran. Yes. And that's a little more difficult. That's a little
Oh, it
more
was incredibly
difficult.
isolating. We were at incredibly
difficult.
isolating. We were at Fort Hood when we got out. We'd moved to a little tiny town out in Oregon where there were no active duty personnel. I mean, the only military you would see is maybe a recruiter who worked at the mall,
Right.
and that was incredibly isolating because people, it felt like nobody understood where we were coming from or who we were and what we had been all about the last 6 years.
Right. I think for me, it's exciting. Like I was at the grocery store and I saw this guy in a flight suit and I was like, I wanted to fangirl him. I'm like, oh, where are you going? What you doing? And I was like, no, don't freak him out. So whenever I see people in uniform, I'm just like, oh my gosh, because you don't get to see that. You don't see that a lot. Because I'm in Charlotte and there are a lot of veterans here, but you don't see a lot of people in uniform.
Yeah.
And, so it's a little difficult. So when I see people in uniform, I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, no, just be cool. Just be cool. Just be cool.
That's so funny. We moved back to the Fort Hood area, but we're in Temple, and my children don't see military members all that often. But I took them to post the other day because we were looking at some aircraft, and my youngest 5-year-old, he points over and he says, "Mama, look, there's a soldier." I said, "Yeah, Bubba, they all work here."
Yes.
And he loves seeing the soldiers. But yes, it is. It's unless you're just really close to it. It can be very isolating.
It can be.
Yeah.
So you get out of the military. When did being an author come about? When did you start writing books?
Okay. So I've had the military community on my heart for a long time. I was going to school after we got out to be an elementary teacher. And my initial thought was, well, maybe I'll be a teacher at Dodd schools on base. But that didn't really pan out the way I wanted it to. And being a mom was really important at that time. And so I kind of switched gears. And it wasn't until a few years ago that I started realizing, I've always loved to write, but I had never attempted to write a story. And a friend of mine was going through that process herself of writing children's stories. And she encouraged me to just try. And what came out was amazing and incredible. Not my first draft maybe, but as I started really working on my craft and what I wanted to say, it was this outpouring of love and appreciation for military children. And so I feel like that's just kind of the way that it worked out, and it's been incredible.
So for people who are thinking that maybe they want to write something, they're not sure they're a writer, they're not really sure what to do. What is I don't know how people write, but some people say, oh, I write really well at nighttime, or I write really well when, it's really quiet, or I get up in the morning, I start writing. What is your process when you're writing?
Oh my goodness. I would love to say
or is it
that
like 10-minute increments when the kids are sleeping?
Yeah. It's so funny because sometimes I'm drying my hair in the morning and I'm like, oh, I have to write this down. I have just the best thing I need to write. And so I'll get out my phone and just make a note. Or other times I'm laying in bed and I just can't sleep. And I'm like, I've got this story. I need to go write it down. And so just, it hits me at different times. And sometimes when it's just not coming out, just taking a step back away from it for a while. And then when the inspiration strikes again, then I can go back to it. It's just kind of this back and forth. And just, I'm one of those people who likes to just get it done. Like I'm a goal-oriented person and I just want to, let me just write my perfect first draft and it's going to be amazing and I won't have to touch it up or anything. It's going to be amazing. And that's just not how it really comes out. It's not how it works.
Yes. That's why a lot of people won't press that button to be a podcast. They're like, it's got to be perfect. I have to have the perfect equipment. It's got to be and they're so busy making it perfect that they never launch it.
Yeah.
So what would you say to someone who maybe isn't a lover of writing? And what I mean by writing is actual writing the letters. Have you ever talked to someone who actually just talked their book, you use your voice thing on your phone and you just write down, you record your thoughts? Is that another way of doing it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they've got so many cool toys now that tools and toys, I guess, out there that make writing incredibly easy to do. And even like the proofreading and the copy editing and all of that. I mean, there's so many ways of getting to a final product that you're happy with. But yes, starting with a method that works for you and your brain. I've just always been a writer, so it works really well for me to just jot down my thoughts and then put it all together when I'm ready. But yeah, absolutely. I think that using voice recording is an excellent tool.
I find that I remember more stuff when I write it down.
Yes.
Like when I write something down and then it's almost like it's written on my brain and I'll remember
Yes.
it. I know that sounds kind of weird, but I'm a weirdo.
No.
Y'all, this
I mean, that's what they teach you in college for studying and stuff, is to take notes. And so even when I go to church, I'm sitting there, I'm the only person in there with a notebook and I'm just taking notes while he's talking. But I remember things better that way. So
as long as you can read the notes afterwards, y'all.
Yeah.
You have to be able to read them.
Absolutely.
So Sarah, tell us a little bit about your first book called The Peppered Sky.
Yes. The Peppered Sky is the first finished book that I've been working on, as finished as in the manuscript is finished. And it's about two military children's siblings, Haley and Mason, and they are on their way to go watch their father perform in an airborne paratrooper training exercise.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
How did it come about that, because you're thinking children's books. I've talked to quite a few authors and even children's book authors, but never, and don't ask me why this never occurred to me, but when you said, oh yeah, it's from the military child perspective, I was just lit up. I was like, oh, how come no one else is doing this? Because this is so cool.
Right. That was part of the reason I started writing in this genre and this niche market, is because there's just a gross underrepresentation of military children in children's literature. And there are a few authors that I've been able and privileged to meet since I started getting into all of this, who have written some other military children's books. And they're wonderful. But I really wanted to create something that wasn't necessarily about deployments or PCSing, while those are very important topics to cover. But I wanted to celebrate the military kid and like the cool experiences that they get to have and the awesome perspective that they're able to have as well. And just something that was happy and felt good and was encouraging. So that's
in a
really
children's voice, in a children's perspective. I think that's so cool. So you said you have the manuscript. So what's the next step now?
Right. So we are in the process of getting illustrations done. Full book illustrations begin August 1st. So I'm very excited about that. My illustrator is also, she comes from a military heritage background. So I felt like that was going to really resonate with the military community, just knowing that it was written and illustrated from a place of authenticity. So once the illustrations are complete, it will get sent over to my designer, who will work on the formatting and getting it all ready to send to the printer. And then once the printer has it, we'll have a book within a few weeks. So are you self-publishing? I am, yes. I looked at all the different options. There's, oh my gosh, so many options today for publishing a book. And this is such a niche market that it just, self-publishing made the most sense for getting this book done correctly and authentically, allowing me to have also the most control over the process.
Right. It's hard to, for people today, even civilians, to understand anything about the military. So why would a civilian publisher think that this really isn't a big deal, where it's a huge deal? Mm-hmm. If you were a military brat or even affiliated with the military, you understand. So yeah, I totally get that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it was also an issue is just the business aspect of it. A lot of civilians don't see the value in the military kids market, which is unfortunate because there are millions of military kids out there and military families who would value this book highly. So I'm going to
put it out there. Anybody who is a publisher who understands what military families go through, please contact Sarah or contact me because we need you. I'm just saying.
Yes. Yes,
just
we
saying.
do.
So the book should be out when then? I'm sorry, I know you said.
So no, early next year, early of 2023, it should be available on Amazon and on Etsy and then some local distributors in the Central Texas area.
I love that.
Thank you.
I want to be a writer. I don't want to. No, I can't say that. That's a lie. I want to be able to say, yeah, I wrote something or even contributed in some way, but I'm not sure I'm there. But then again, I said I could never do a podcast, and now look. So
you can totally do it. I mean, you have a story in you. You have this incredible, rich history and heritage that you are proud of, and I know that you can write something amazing.
Absolutely.
I will buy your book.
Oh, thanks. See, I got one.
Yes.
One. Do I hear two? So Sarah, a few words, if you could, to someone who's kind of on the fence about writing any book. What's the easiest way for them to just start? Like
Absolutely.
they're not thinking publisher, they're not thinking illustrator, they're just putting pen to paper. What's the easiest way to start to do that?
For me, and everybody's brains work differently, but for me, it was just getting a tablet of paper and just start jotting down your ideas. It doesn't have to be a polished poem. It doesn't have to be even a full sentence, but just start jotting down your ideas or jotting down your memories. The Peppered Sky was based on my own memories of watching my dad airborne jump. And so for me, I just kind of let myself go back to that place, which was hard because that was a minute ago. And just kind of reliving those things and talking to my mom and saying, hey, am I remembering this correctly? Or, and just revisiting those things and writing them down. Once you start writing those things down, you'll be amazed at how quickly you fill up a page. And then you can go back and start grouping things and organizing them together. And then you decide, okay, am I going to write this in poetic form, or am I going to write this in more of a narrative? And then it just kind of, it flows, and it works.
I love that idea. I know in business, I was told to, get a book and just, anytime you get a word or a thought or something, just write it in this book. Because how many times have you said, oh, I'll remember that? And then you try to get it back and it's gone. Like it's gone forever.
Yes.
So I like that. You just write down these thoughts and then you start to kind of string them together. I love that.
Absolutely. I have notes in my phone. And so when I'm in the middle of something, blow drying my hair or fixing dinner or whatever, or in the car even, I use my voice and record it in my notes that way, just so I don't lose that thought, because it is hard to get it back afterwards.
Yeah. Especially when you're getting up there in age like me, it's like gone forever. I was like, okay, if I just wait, maybe it'll come back. Yeah, no, it's not happening.
No.
Sarah, where can people find you if they want to reach out to you?
Absolutely. The best place to find me is on Instagram. You can find me at author_Sarah_Doran. And that's where you can find all of the book updates, release dates, sneak peeks, and info about my new and upcoming books. Because there are more than one. There are several books in the queue. It's just, we got to do one at a time. So.
I love that. Yeah. So it's not just one and then you got to wait.
Right.
I love to know that there's something in the wings waiting,
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Sarah, thank you so much for being on our podcast today. It was such a pleasure. For those of you that don't know, I think you reached out to me, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah. And I was like, who's this person? And I was like, okay, fine. And then we just chatted and chatted and chatted. And I was like, she's perfect, so thank you so much for reaching out. I really
Thank you so much for having me. It was my honor and privilege.
Yes. It was just wonderful having you and knowing that you fill all those buckets, military brat, military veteran, military spouse, because I fill all those buckets too. Yeah. And it's kind of cool,
it really is.
To talk to someone who understands all three of those. So thank you, everybody, for listening in. Please stay safe. Take care of each other. Until next time. And it's never too late to start your impossible.